I will save it. All right, welcome to our first call of our data center decarbonization community. I'm really happy that we have a beautiful and a really knowledgeable discussion here with great panelists here in our discussion. Today's topic, it's about the accumulation of data center sites in Northern Virginia. And we would like to discuss here what is really needed in terms of changing, because we all have the opinion that business as usual in the data center industry is not applicable anymore, and we cannot accept it anymore. Yeah, I think everyone is agreeing, especially the people here in the call. At the same time, we would like to share what's happening in some parts of Europe, where really data center sites are operated as sustainable as possible. There are some projects going on. We have Henrik here. Henrik will elaborate on some projects here. And of course, these initiatives, what's happening in Europe or in many parts of Europe, are also backed up by legislation. And all the initiatives are really there to decarbonize the industry. All right, so let's go into the discussion. Let's start with Julie.
Hi.
Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Julie Bolthouse. I'm the Director of Land Use with Piedmont Environmental Council. That's a small nonprofit organization out of Virginia. We cover the counties Loudoun and Clark down to Albemarle County. I've been in this field. I've been working for PEC for 14 years. I've been in the environmental field for about 20 years. I have a master's degree in urban affairs and planning and a second master's degree in natural resources management. And I started out working on watershed management and really delving into the streams and sticking my head in the water and learning about all the great mussels and fish that the diversity of freshwater species that we have here in Virginia. But then I realized if I want to protect all that beauty that's in the water, I got to get active with what's happening on the land. So that's a little bit about me.
You're more than welcome. So next one, please. Elena, please tell us a bit about you.
So I'm definitely don't have lots of those abbreviations by my name, like Julie. In a previous life, I was a middle school counselor, and I moved to Prince William County about 22 years ago, built a forever home. I love Prince William County. I'm a native Virginian, and I became involved in land use to protect rural spaces and promote sustainable living and quality of life for really everyone in the county. And then one day, transmission line proposal crossed my property. And for the first time, I wasn't just advocating for the holistic well-being of the community and protecting our resource. I was also advocating for myself. And so I'm actually sitting at my kitchen table where the Coalition to Protect Prince William County was born. And that fight was about data center expansion next to the rural area. It is an Amazon Web Services campus. And that transmission line, we call an extension cord, was going to impact hallowed ground, residential communities and small businesses. And so that was my introduction into the impacts of the data center industry. And what we were able to do was prove that the data center industry was demanding this immense amount of power that could only be fed by this transmission line infrastructure and substations that not only impacted our private property and our, like I said, our natural and cultural resources, but then we have the pleasure of paying for it. So what we did was we were respondents at the SCC, State Corporate Commission hearing, and we convinced the SCC legal staff that we were right. And so that was the first time 10 years ago that really we began to expose the impacts of this industry. And unfortunately, what Virginia is facing now is instead of one campus, it has proliferated and spread like a virus. And now it's not just my county bearing the infrastructure impacts, it's really the entire state. And I can't say enough about the environmental organizations like Piedmont Environmental Council that have stepped up as really a leader in providing the truth about what's happening. And the smaller organizations, Prince William Conservation Alliance and the coalition we're all together in this. So that's, and I'm just generally just an advocate for the community, and I don't get paid. We do it because we love where we live.
Absolutely. So many thanks also to you for joining. Next one, please. David, please tell us a bit about yourself. David, you need to unmute the classical.
Yes, so my name is David Gyulnazaryan. I'm located in Nice, south of France, and I'm focusing on data center decarbonization and heat reuse. And the idea of the decarbonization is to reduce the impact on the environment, but at the same time bring social pillars, to core social pillars of data center business. So this is in short, and during the discussion, I will explore that in details.
Perfect. Very good. And next one, please. Henrik, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, my name is Henrik Børling. I'm from Huawei. I represent the Nordics in Huawei, and that means that I work out of the Denmark to the other Nordic countries. I also represent Huawei in different kinds of organizations. For instance, I represent Denmark for the standardization within the EN 5600 standard. I also represented in the global committee within ISO standard, working directly with sustainable KPIs for data centers. And my interest and why I actually are so interested to work with data centers is we are in a transition where data centers are one of the biggest power consumers in the market, but we need to make this transition to something else. And we are making this in the Nordics in some very good ways now. And this is hopefully also something I can introduce to this group.
Perfect. I cannot agree more, especially to the last part you just mentioned. Yeah, last but not least, my part, I'm not so important. I do the facilitation. I'm like David, an independent consultant in the data center environment, also pushing like him on the decarbonization of the industry. So David and myself, we used to run or to lead the OCP community for Europe. And we resigned this role at the beginning of January to free up some capacity for our consultancy work. And I'm more than happy to be here. And so let's kick off our conversation here. Let's start with Julie. Julie, please share with the audience. I think Elena elaborated already a bit what's happening here in Northern Virginia. So basically, who pays for the transmission or the data center infrastructure? Yeah, and who do you prove that?
So if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen and share a few slides that I have just to really describe what's happening in Virginia and what we're concerned about. So as everyone knows, Northern Virginia is the largest data center market in the world. As you can see, this is the abundance of different companies that operate out of Virginia. This is from Virginia Economic Development Department's webpage. You can see we are a huge hub for the data center market. Currently, we have 57 million square feet of data center being constructed actively or already in existence. This is an image from Ashburn, Virginia. And as you can see, the homes are in really close proximity to the data center development. And there's always a crane in the sky. Usually there's half a dozen cranes in the sky building more data centers in this area. This is, again, I know your audience knows this, but this is the Northern Virginia market. I mean, we dwarf all other markets. If you combined it with the national, US market, and we showed Dallas and everybody together, we absolutely dwarf the rest of the world. So the idea that we need to continue to keep up with, because there's a lot of arguments being made right now that we need to keep up with China and other markets, it really is laughable. Yep. This is what the growth looks like currently in Virginia because of the friendliness of our honestly, the regulations that we have in place and of the price point that we give on power and the fact that we don't require new data centers to actually pay for their infrastructure, like you mentioned at the beginning, the way our system works is when a data center comes in, they are approved by the locality in which they're proposing their operation. And so they look at things like lighting, noise, aesthetics, the architecture, the landscaping. They do not really look at the power consumption. They don't really look at the power infrastructure. They don't have that information. Some of them will request it, but really they don't even know what to do with it when they get it. Because Dominion, which is the utility that operates in most of this area, and honestly, all the other utilities really don't have a good proactive framework for, okay, this is what kind of infrastructure will be required with this size project. And so we just have these projects coming in, being approved by localities, and then our utility has an obligation to serve power. So our utilities come in, and all of a sudden, they are told you need to provide 3 gigawatts worth of power because I got approved by Prince William County, or you got to give me 1 gigawatt of power because Loudoun County just approved my project. And no matter how much power and no matter where they want it, the utility has to provide that infrastructure and has to get it through somehow. And so this is what's happened as a result of this broken system. All these red dots on the map are showing new data center proposals. Many of them have already been approved. And we are looking at astronomical numbers at this point, and we've been tracking this, and all of our information is based on county web pages and getting the direct, like, we're not just basing this off of hearsay. Somebody told us there was a data center development. We're actually basing it off of county land use records and applications that are actually in the pipeline. There's 180 million square feet approved or in the pipeline. And just based on a rough estimate using 300 watts per square foot, because I mean, we really don't have the actual numbers. We're having to try to do these rough estimates. That puts us at 54 gigawatts worth of power. That's absurd numbers when you consider the fact that we're only at 3.2 gigawatts right now. That's insane. Just so you know, there's only 3.6 million homes in all of Virginia. So a power consumption equating to 13.5 million homes is absolutely absurd. That's the equivalent of New York, London, Paris, Washington, D.C., Miami, all of these cities together. This is what the load forecast for Dominion Energy looks like right now. This is what is officially in the documentation to drive forward our transmission line projects. 23 gigawatts worth of load growth on a system that currently only has 23 or 22 gigawatt peak capacity. So we're talking about doubling our utility, and our RTO, which is the Regional Transmission Organization, is seriously talking about doubling our power demand over the next 10 years. And this is where it's coming from. It's all data centers. The residential power usage is just about flat. Commercial's declining, other industrial is declining. Data centers is what's driving it all. And this is just showing you all the contracts that are in place. This is not just, speculative at this point. There's actually contracts on the ground. The blue bar right there is showing you contracts for electric service agreement. That means they've already built the substation. They've already built the building. All they need to do is turn on the on switch. The orange line is the substations. That's where they've got a contract to build the substation. They've already engineered it. They've already designed it. And now they just need to build the substation. And then the block, which is 8.6 gigawatts above that, that's the engineering letters of authorization. That's where they've just started, figuring out if this is going to work. According to Dominion, they've told us that no one's ever backed out of the blue or the orange sectors there. They occasionally will back out once they look at the engineering for the substations. And what does this equate to in terms of cost? In our notices last year, our legal notices, we were notified that we're looking at 100% increase in our electricity bills for residential ratepayers. So we're subsidizing this. The industry absolutely has electric bills. They're paying for their power, but it also is spread across the entire rate base. And so we're subsidizing the rest. And so we're looking at a doubling of our energy cost. And that was based on 2022 numbers. That doesn't include all those red dots that are moving forward in 2023 and 2024. So we're expecting this to go up significantly higher. This is the transmission projects that are moving through right now. They go all the way out to Ohio. Just to give you kind of a close-up, because I know you guys are not familiar with Virginia, this is a large land area. This is just the small chunk that goes through Loudoun County. It's going through our farms. It's going through those green blocks are easements. So they're conservation easements where you're not allowed to do development, and the state has invested in this conservation to protect watersheds and everything. And now we're going to plow transmission lines through them.
Yeah.
This is the big line that has to go through Data Center Alley. All those little yellow triangles are the existing data centers that are in place. The red triangles are they're new data centers. They're proposals for new data centers. And honestly, they're speculating on a line that's already over capacity. This line isn't even built yet, and it's already maxed out. And all these red triangles are just going to require it to be doubled. So, I mean, we're out of control. These are also a bunch of smaller lines that are just going out to data centers. They're going to be connecting up to communities. And this is just to emphasize the sustainability portion of it, what our conversation is going to be about today. All of these lines are going out to West Virginia and Ohio. These blocks here are coal facilities. This is a NHTSA designation, but just to show you, this line is the only one that's not connecting to clean energy. And that's according to the Department of Energy. And this is just to show you what those lines are actually connecting up to. The vast majority of the power up in West Virginia and Ohio is coal and natural gas. Only 50 megawatts is wind energy. About 10 gigawatts is coal and natural gas. So this is not sustainable. It's also just, I would argue it's also not even realistic. There is a certain aspect of this that is, I would think the industry itself would start to ask some real questions of, does Dominion actually know what they're doing? Are we actually ever going to get power? Is this even really feasible to do? So I'll leave it at that. I know that was a little bit longer than you probably wanted.
All good. I think it was a really good. Thank you very much also for all these slides here. It's appreciated. Yeah, please, if possible from your side, please share them also afterwards here with the team. And yeah, we also have them to incorporate it in our presentation if this is not sufficient enough. So next one, Elena, yeah, please, I think you already started. Please describe with what we could see from the slides the current model of the data center development in your area in Northern Virginia, and what is really an essential threat here to the communities there, and yeah, why is this the case? Yeah, please elaborate a bit on this.
So first of all, Julie, I honestly, I think we could almost end right now. Everybody who listened and digested that information cannot come away from this conversation without understanding that this is not only self-preservation for individual homeowners and citizens. It's not only preservation for a state. This is a threat to the data center industry. They are not getting this power. I got a news flash. At some point, Virginia residents will show up with their torches and pitchforks because, as Julie has mentioned, there's going to have to be taking of homes and businesses to provide this kind of power. So from the perspective of, you know, this you've got this macro that Julie just described, and then you've got this micro impact. The micro impact on communities is real. So it starts with the process itself on a local level is totally corrupted by the influence of obscene amounts of money, not only to our decision makers, but to residents themselves who can either accept being bought out, like at the Digital Gateway Project, which is 2,000 acres next to a national park and on hallowed ground. So you can either sell out for I don't know, 100 times what you bought your property for, or you can live in fear that you will be consumed by this industrial corridor, so you sell. And then you've got our local government not asking the right questions. And at the end of the day, it is the citizens who are suffering.
Yeah.
I say this on a regular basis, but all of us are on this train together, and we are headed towards a cliff. And the question is, how many people get dragged over that cliff with the data center industry? And for most of us here in the States, our biggest investment is our home. That's where we have our equity. That's where we build our community. That's where our children play sports and go to school. And you see this, we actually, in the coalition's legal document, when we filed against the Digital Gateway, we describe what's happening here as a dystopian hellscape, because we are looking out our windows at what used to be either a rural landscape or our homes, or this livable commercial where you walk, live, and play, to these behemoth buildings, and the transmission infrastructure that is required. Julie described the doubling of our infrastructure demand that Dominion Energy described in 2022. What they are saying now is quadrupling. And that's probably even underestimating what is in front of us. So, Julie, you have some slides that I thought would be important for people to understand what we are living with. So what we thought here in Gainesville, which was going to be mixed use development and, and some commercial and retail. That's a good slide, Julie. What we thought was going to be mixed use development of housing, because we really need more housing. Instead, is now going to be this hyperscale project. This is what's called the 6629 Tech Park. And this hyperscale is one of three. And it is hard to imagine what this looks like close up, but this is next to an elementary school. This is across the street from housing development. It's at the edge of a historic town of Haymarket. And these buildings don't have the power yet. And when we talk about transmission, it's important to understand, what does that look like? What does a 105-foot tall transmission line look like? Julie, if you could show the transmission. Okay, so I don't know if you can see at the very, very bottom. That's me. That's me. And this is actually from the Haymarket transmission line fight, where we forced half of this line to be buried through residential communities and through small businesses, but the other half is above ground. That is what a double 230 kV transmission looks like. And it's not just the height of the transmission line itself. It requires a 120-foot easement. And so once you have that easement, you can add more transmission infrastructure. So this is what, people, when you talk about the impacts to Virginians throughout the Commonwealth, the line that Julie showed that comes through to Loudoun, that's going to be adjacent to historic districts. It's going to run through historic districts. So Virginia, as this beautiful state that promotes tourism, as one of the 13 original colonies, is turning into this landfill of data centers, transmission lines, and substations. Julie, you want to go to, so this is this transmission line that we are now fighting in Haymarket and Gainesville, where I live, is also intended to serve this other campus. I want you to look to the left of those buildings. This is an Amazon Web Services campus, by the way. Look at those those people were expecting a town center. For 18 years, this was supposed to be a town center. When they bought their homes, they were told this was going to be a town center with mixed use development and housing and restaurants and walkable, and it was going to be so fabulous, and it was going to add all these amenities to where they live. Now look at it. That's 50 feet. The edge of that data center development is 50 feet from those condos.
It's not a nice view, I can imagine, if you live there.
And this is an elementary school up here, right, Elena?
Okay.
Yes, that's the elementary school. And if you look towards the back, that's the first hyperscale. One of 3. That's the NTT campus right across the street. Now, these 2 campuses alone will approach 900 megawatts. There is a lot of talk about nuclear power. How much energy does a nuclear facility produce? Around, give or take, 1 gigawatt of power. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to just get this. Sorry.
Yes,
Sorry, other landline. So you're talking, when we talk about nuclear power feeding these facilities, how many nuclear power plants are we going to have to build when at one intersection you have enough load demand for 1 nuclear power plant? Now, this transmission line that we're fighting, that is going to be thrust upon us only for data center development. You can't see the other campus that this will connect to, but about 1.6 miles from this campus is where this new transmission line will begin. It's another campus that will have, I want to say it's around, I'm going to be very conservative, 5 million square feet of data center development. This line that they are proposing right now will not meet the load demand. What we heard yesterday from our local supervisor, who is opposed to all of this, in his meeting with Dominion Energy, was that these 2 campuses alone, within 2 miles of each other, will ultimately need over 3 gigawatts of power. How are we going to serve that? The community is going to experience living in this spider web of transmission lines and substations. We are sacrificing our real world for this digital world. And it's unfair on its face. It's unfair. So you have the broader impacts of hooking into carbon, fossil fuel. But for us and our everyday lives, this is a monstrosity. People are feeling these impacts in ways that they're not sleeping. They are looking at their community being consumed by this industrialization. And our elected leaders are just totally checked out. So, for us, those are the impacts on the ground. And then to know that we are paying for this infrastructure. Dominion Energy will say, well, the data center industry is a ratepayer. They are paying for their infrastructure. Well, that's like saying you go to dinner with a group of people, there's 6 of you, and you order a Caesar salad, and the other couple orders, the $1,000 bottle of wine and the surf and turf of Wagyu beef. And so you're there with your little tiny Caesar salad, and the people next to you have just ordered the most expensive, but you're splitting it among all of you. So then you are paying for their meal. So I don't know what other way to describe it, but it is unfair. And I want to bring up this issue about politicians and how this has become an electoral issue for us in the 10th Congressional District. The coalition put out a questionnaire, and in the 10th District, almost 90% of those candidates returned that questionnaire, and every single one of them talked about this is not sustainable and there needs to be federal oversight. So at some point, this is going to, it won't matter how much money the data center industry gives you, because it won't be enough to compete with the citizens that are going to show up to kick you out of office, which locally we have experienced. So I hope that gives an overview of what this really looks like on the ground, and that at some point, my prediction is that the data center industry will move at some point out of Virginia. But if this particular model is not changed, like any good plague, they will go somewhere else and they will repeat this unsustainable model. And it's the citizens who are suffering.
Elena and Julie, many thanks for all these insights you're sharing with us, but also with our audience, not from the US. I think it's it's amazing.
Globally.
Amazing, I can only say at the moment. I think we had in our previous calls, we already realizing the building at those data center sites, I must say, these data center halls as traditional legacy data center sites based on fossil fuels and so on. David, as you're an expert here when it comes to decarbonize, when it comes to creating and designing cooling solutions, also in combination with heat reuse solutions. So looking at these data center sites, when it comes to making use of the heat rejection from the IT workloads, from the servers, what is a big challenge when we talk about these 200 megawatt sites or even more?
Thank you for the question, Stefan.
Welcome.
Actually, I'm really impressed by the slides from Julie and Elena, and thank you very much for creating awareness about that, because what we see in Europe, even let's say 200 megawatt data center, which is placed where you have energy, where you have low cost land and fiber network, and after that we're trying to do something with the heat reuse, and we don't have opportunity to make that heat reuse. And Elena mentioned 900 megawatts, 3 gigawatts. It's not possible at all to understand what to do with that heat. So the main obstacle to make heat reuse is matching the heat dissipation which we have from the data center, and to find surrounding applications, or even to build application which will cover that heat reuse. And if we are talking in the conventional understanding of heat reuse, it's usually people think about the heating. But if we look for the small town and this enormous giant, which is 1,000 times more energy consumption than the town itself, there is nothing to do. It's you should think in the beginning how to handle that. And from global perspective, the table which was shown by Julie, that only Virginia is consumed energy, which all countries together make weak point that if something will happen in Virginia, it will make effect globally for all countries. And we should think about distribution of that energy. And as small we will have these clusters of data centers closer to the small towns or towns itself, then will be better possibilities to make heat reuse. Not only for the towns, also for different industrial process. And this is why it should be big picture thinking. It means that we should also think about other industries which need energy, and data centers just take away that energy from them. But there can be synergy that we can make in better way. But this is in short. The main obstacle is the capacity of the data center, and the use of that heat it should be made in the same proportion, in the same scale. Now we see that it's not fair.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, data center sites are, I always saying, like power plants, and not everything is also ideal when it comes, let's say, to the market or the data center market here in Europe. But there's some things we are hopefully doing the right way. So I think we can really say we are driving the sustainability part of data center sites. Of course, we don't have that vast land available. That's why our sites are smaller. We are trying to push. Not in all countries is the same. We're trying to push renewable energy. So the Nordics is leading this. Yeah, many countries in the so-called Nordic region, the Scandinavian countries, including Iceland, they have sometimes really 100% renewable energy. It's wind and also hydro energy. So that's why we have Henrik also here. And as I mentioned at the beginning, there are some good initiatives. Of course, there are also the still old traditional data center sites, which are really also running on fossil fuel and do some greenwashing. But however, we have some really good, I always say that lighthouse projects. And one is I would like Henrik to elaborate on the energy hub, which is planned at the moment, which is done and at the municipality of Varde in Denmark. And Henrik, yeah, please share a bit with the audience what is happening there when it comes to renewable energy, when it comes to connectivity, and what is happening there also in terms of sector coupling.
First of all, I'm quite shocked about the situation in Virginia. I tried to find some better words for it, but the only word I can come to is stupid. So I'm sorry. This is how I feel about the situation there. When we talk about the cooperation between companies and also the public authorities, this is where the authorities have made a huge amount of demands for data centers to come to what we call data center parks. And this is what we are seeing in the Varde region, but also what we actually see in Hokkaido in Japan. They also have a data park there. What they're looking at is what we call sector coupling. And for the public authorities, you really need to make much more plans for renewable energy, solar farms, windmill parks, be there. The situation we have in the Nordics is actually, we have too much solar parks, we have too many wind farms. So that means we have overproduction. But this is not a bad thing. That's a good thing, because now we can make a transition for the energy from electricity to some other energy forms like hydrogen, ammonium, or whatever. And that means when we have like data parks, we can use this energy for making the data centers, also helping to make grid stability. Because when we have so much renewable energy in the grid, we have what we call the Nordic immediate challenge, meaning that the grid is going to be more and more unstable because we cannot produce the energy as we consume it. Therefore, data centers can be a really, really factor to help stabilize this energy or the grid also. So this is from the holistic view of data centers. We call it sector coupling. Be assured we have solar farms, windmill parks connected directly to data centers. Use this energy conversion there. So we are not only talking about using, for instance, green hydrogen. We are actually talking about using in all aspects, also like fuel cells. So we have this concept which we say data centers is bringing their own energy when they're built. And this is for all the communities and also for the workload to data centers. In the past, I think it was Julia also said, we are building data centers where we have the power, where we have the connectivity. This is the past. This is not what we are going to do in the future. Data centers are going to be built where we can reuse the energy and where we can actually have the data centers to help stabilize the grid. This is what we need to look into. And we are there now. But the amount and the way they are built in Virginia, it actually saddens me a lot, because this is out of scope, also for a sector coupling perspective.
Yeah.
So, and I think also, like David also mentioned, it's stupid to have all these data centers centralized just in Virginia. Look at the world market. There's so many places to place the data centers. As we say, you can actually move data. It's very hard to move energy. And if you don't have the right amount of renewable energy in Virginia, why build there? This is totally out of my mind. You can continue to do that like this. But the energy also actually have to be very costly. So I cannot see the overall perspective to do this.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Henrik. And also for the audience, this call is not about turning back the wheel. Yeah, it's of course there will be also in the future new data center sites, but also what Henrik said. Please, this is also when it comes to planning, when it comes to also the legislations or the governments to have an influence and also say, hey, does it really make sense to accumulate data center sites in one place? Let's look at other possibilities. Where is the renewable energy and so on? So this is something where we all here in this group and also outside this group, people are working on. And we just want to highlight there is an issue. And that's why I'm coming back to Julie. And I think we've seen some of the pictures because some data center sites, hey, be happy that we are there, I can imagine, because we also like anchor industries, more industries will be settled there. And we are, you should be happy that we are neighbors. But of course, if I look at the picture you just shared us before with these houses really facing this big data center hall. So what do you say when you get the feedback? Hey, please be happy that we are there.
So what I usually say, because I'm a Loudoun County resident myself, and 30% of our budget, our entire budget for the entire county is from revenue from data centers. And so what I usually say is no one is trying to chase the data center industry out of Loudoun County, because if we did that, my two children who are in public school would have no school anymore. I don't know how Loudoun County would function if we lost 30% of our revenue. That would all fall onto residential taxpayers and it would be disastrous. So no one's telling the data center industry to leave. What we're telling them is that we are at capacity. Or you need to build different. It's either build better. You can't keep building bigger though. And so I do see a lot of, I listen to a lot of these podcasts and publications that are put out by Data Center Dynamics and Data Center Frontier and Data Center Revolution podcast. Like I listen to all of this and I hear all sorts of great solutions in the pipeline, and I don't understand why they're not being done at scale. So the things that I hear about that give me a little bit of hope are liquid cooling, heat recapture, linking up, like you were talking about, the renewable energy with the sector actually using these data centers for, possibly like virtual power plants or load balancing on the grid. I would even go a little bit further and say maybe we need to think outside the box and talk about cold storage instead of all these servers running all the time. And maybe we need to have better data management. Maybe we need to not keep piling up more and more and more data. Maybe we need to think about a better way of handling all of this. And I think what's just happening right now is it's just speed to market, man. That's the only thing that matters. And no one is thinking about the sustainability of all of this. No one is thinking about other ways to do it. So I guess what I would say is I know they keep saying they want to be a better neighbor. The data center industry is constantly saying they want to be a better neighbor. Well, the way you be a better neighbor is stop doing, what you're doing to damage us. Just one more, analogy here. I was asked by a press person a few weeks ago, do you see this as a David versus Goliath battle? And I told them, no, I really don't see it as a David versus Goliath. What I see it is as we're a bunch of ants in our little anthill, and this industry is just stepping on our anthill, not on purpose. It's almost like it's just a foot stepping on an anthill. They're not paying any attention. And we, the ants, have to climb up the leg and just bite until we finally get their attention and say, you're destroying the anthill. Stop it. It's like they don't even comprehend, because it's a tragedy of the commons. It's everybody's doing what is in their own best interest. They're building their one data center. They don't understand how it adds up. and the tragedy of the commons that is occurring on our grid, on our air quality. And I think they're probably going to be just as shocked as our elected officials when we start to really see disastrous consequences.
Fair point, Julie. And I just want to also add here, just to avoid any misunderstandings, as you know, Henrik, David, and myself, we are part of the industry, of course we are. But of course, there is a big mistake, or I think sometimes it's our fault, because we are not really good in communication. So we are not communicating also what's happening to run data center sites as sustainable as possible, that we are working on what you also mentioned, liquid cooling, AI applications. The density is increasing. You need to do laser cooling, liquid cooling. You increase the density in a rack, but you also change the way how you cool them. At the same time, the number is also shrinking. So in the end of the day, it's really a question. If you're only sticking to air cooled, of course, then you need to have these big data halls. But if you're having the same compute, having 300 racks with 5 kilowatts replaced by 25 racks with 120 kilowatt, yeah. So these are things are happening, not in all part of the world, but I think sometimes we are not really good in communications, or all the time, I must say. And of course, we are also on the radar. I think 5 years ago and 10 years ago, apart, let's say, from you in Northern Virginia, people were not really aware that if you are if you're on a smartphone, if you're streaming a video, it ends up in the data center side, right? But now people realizing there is an impact, there is some CO2 emissions if you're really going digital and streaming a video, for example. And again, we're not turning back the wheel, but I think there are some things we can do it better, yeah? Elena, so basically, I think you already shared, and I can also see that that you guys are fighting there, and I'm really proud of you guys. So again, let's share really why also outside the US, outside Virginia, people should care what's happening in Virginia, right?
Well, I think what we are an example of is what could happen everywhere. We are competing for basic resources with the wealthiest, most influential industry in the world right now. Yeah. And to the point about we all use our phones, we're all streaming, we're all saving pictures. There was an ad by Apple recently, and their ad was, "Don't delete. All those 16 pictures that you took of whatever flower or bug or cat or dog, don't delete." And the reaction of this community when someone shared it with me was, no, delete. What happens when we pass away? Because there's no financial benefit to this industry really looking at reducing the amount of data that's being saved. And instead of saying no, do more, we need to say no, do less, and how do we be a part of that? But in truth, we are competing for resources: power, water, land. In Virginia, there are right now risks of power loss. And those losses are more likely to happen during those peak load times, when we are already under red alert warnings, when already it is dangerous for certain populations to not have their air conditioning. These risks are real for us. And at some point, somebody is gonna get hurt. And what we're saying here in Virginia, well, from the perspective of the coalition, it is not just about how do we make more energy to meet this demand. The other side of the equation that must be addressed is how much this industry is asking for, how much power and how much water. The reason why 10 years ago, the coalition wanted to force this rate structure and making the industry pay is because they would then, the mother of all inventions, the necessity is the mother of all inventions. If they had to pay for their infrastructure, their generation, you better believe this industry, I don't know how to solve this problem. Smart people, much smarter than me, are going to have to figure this out. But as soon as these resources are not so cheap, there will be a solution. As soon as the power isn't available and the land isn't available, they'll find a way.
Agree. This we can also here share what's our experience here in Europe. So, for example, if I share this in Germany, so we in the European Union we have the highest energy prices, and of this increased big time due to the war in the Ukraine, yeah, because our industry was also focusing on fossil fuel. And now, if let's say if this is if the shrinking profits, people are now becoming creative, you know, and I was always saying a crisis is also is sometimes not good, of course, but also out of the crisis, new innovations popping up.
It's
Coming
an
down,
opportunity.
oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
And coming back now to the smartest engineer I know in the industry, which is David. And I always love when David is saying energy. So data centers shouldn't take energy or shouldn't take water. Should provide water. Yeah. And David, just please also share with us. Now we've seen all these data center halls, and we've seen also the growing demand of energy for these data center halls. I'm always saying. You're sharing your screen, which is good. What is what is the solution? What would be the solution for that, including AI applications?
Yes, Stefan, thank you. So I want just to show one of the growth opportunities, which can be extensive, which we see now that we're just repeating in the same way again and again, or it can be intensive. And now I want to show one of example how we can grow intensively. It's mean that without extending our impact of energy grid, but increasing the IT capacity. This is the example of air-cooled racks and liquid-cooled racks, and we can see that it is 7 times denser in kilowatts, but at the same time, it's need less space, 3 times. So overall, it's 21 times denser. And another thing is about the temperatures, which we need to provide. It's about the heat transfer. And if we talk about air-cooled servers, we need 20 degrees facility water. If we talk about liquid heat transfer, we can rise up to 40 degrees in that water. And that also means that we can take away the fans, which create the airflow inside of the servers when we shift to the liquid. So we also reduce by 10, 35% that point. And of course, we need much less energy infrastructure. In this case, I'm showing that the same compute power, the same CPU, the same GPU, but we need less racks, we need less power for IT, we need less power for the heat transfer, less power for the interruptible power supply, and overall we can add additional 40% of IT capacity with the same power input. And another one slide, this one is fresh from Computex. You can see that new NVIDIA GB200 GPU are allowed to reduce 25%, 25 times less energy. It's mean that the one GPU can do much more compute at the same time use 25 times less energy. However, we see that we need the compute not 25 times more. We need it is 1,000 times more. This is why we see this growth. And in the end, we should understand that where is the limits of our AI? Where is the limits of our growth? It should be wise to make these steps forward. This is my assumption.
Okay. Thank you, David. Okay, coming back to Henrik, I could see you sneaked away for a while. Good to hear that you are back. Again, I love this project in Denmark from the municipality of Varde. What is the current status at the moment? So can you share this with the audience?
Yeah, the land sites are actually going to be built now. So the land is sold, but together with it sold, it's only a certain percentage that's going to be data centers. The rest of the sites is going to be greenhouses, like power to the X sites factories, and there's also going to be windmill parks and solar parks in combination with the data centers. And this is actually also to be very close to the housing where the heat recovery is going to be. But also, just to elaborate a little bit about what David said, one of the things that we see for data center consumption, and this is also why coming from my work with the standardizations, is that when we look at KPIs, the energy uses of data centers is something, but the way you control the servers is actually more important, because when you're going to look into the way you're looking for data centers and the energy consumption, you really need to look at the utilizations of the servers also. And this is what we also are demanding for bigger data centers, that when customers come into a data center, they require the data centers to be AAA plus energy friendly and also environmental friendly. But this also gives some demands to the users, the people working there or giving the data there. They also need to be able to adapt to that and look at to help the data center to use the data in the best way, but also how to run the data center.
All right, thank you very much. So I have a last question now for Julie or for Elena. So up to you guys. Possibly also for the audience, a bit of a repetition, but yeah, we heard about the Prince William County has a projective highest footprint of accumulation of data centers in the world. And again, we heard a bit of the impact, yeah, and maybe you can also share what's happening really in a brief summary. I think many things have been already said. Happening what is the impact for the county, for the region, and yeah, in the end of the day for the state, if this is not changed, yeah, if this is continuing, and we have seen from your slides, there are more data center sites which are in the planning phase. Yeah?
I think I would say the biggest consequence is going to be that we're going to have power reliability issues, and the rates are going to skyrocket because all this infrastructure is very expensive, and the air quality is going to decline significantly in our region. But I'll let Elena add on to that.
Okay. Thank you, Julie. Elena?
I don't know what more I could add on to what Julie just shared, but for the people in the community, we are experiencing this existential threat, not only to our personal lives, but to the future for our kids. Mm-hmm. And what we hope is that this is not a cautionary tale, that there will be a significant change in direction, because from the perspective of the people who live here and from the environmental organizations, there is no choice. There must be a change.
Thank you, Elena. So I think we're almost there. I think we have 2 more questions, and then we're almost done. David, I would like to come back to you. I think it was really nice to share really the slides, how we can really make use of new technology of liquid cooling. What is really the impact there? What is or is there an approach which can cover the environmental and also the social pillars in these kind of 200 megawatts data center halls?
Yes, thanks, Stefan. So I explore different heat reuse opportunities, and what we see in Europe, that there is a disbalance because during the winter we need more heating, during the summer there is no request for heat reuse. And suddenly I have looked for the water desalination approach, which can be made not by the reverse osmosis, but by the thermal approach, and I'll share quickly just 2 slides. So the cooling the heat transfer in hot climates is very costly for data centers. At the same time, there is a lot of request for the fresh water, and they spend a lot of money for the reverse osmosis. But what we can do, we can use the seawater, which we use for desalination, as a cooling media for the data centers, by this reducing their impact on energy grid, and at the same time providing free heating for these desalination plants, which reduce the price of the water and make social impact for the people who live in that areas. And overall, of course, we reduce in this synergy way the investments and for data centers and for desalination plant, and have less freshwater price and no energy usage for the data center heat transfer. But if we look for this capacity, this 10 megawatt data center need 5,000 cubic meter per day. But if we look for only Dubai, the quantity of water which is supplied to the city is 2 million cubic meters per day. This is the opportunity to use all that heat which is needed for the water desalination. And this is only one of the examples, useful examples, where we have thermal energy hungry applications. The same can be explored in other industries, which can be also placed where we have data centers, like in Virginia. So this is the system thinking approach.
Thank you, David. So these kind of desalination projects, when we're presenting this to what mentioned by David, to regions where water, drinking water, is a rare source, like in Africa and some regions of Africa or Middle East, people are amazed. Yeah, they use it anyhow. But why not using existing data center sites close to the sea? Yeah, do the cool the workload by the seawater, but also desalinate it and use it as a. And they can use it as an additional revenue stream, selling some drinking water to the people there. So there are some benefits, and yeah, and also other industries, can really make use. And we are also pushing that the industries are talking to each other. Yeah. All right. Last but not least, the final question going now to Henrik. There, as I said, there are many projects happening in Europe. Can you also share another project? You know what I'm talking about, the Salmon project. What is done there, and what is also the role of Huawei and your personal role? Yeah, please share with the audience what's happening there.
Yeah, this is quite an exciting project from my personal perspective, because this is where we make some CSR work, and we have done it in Norway. We are going to do it in Iceland also, where we are going to separate an invasive salmon from the North Atlantic salmon. So that is a humpback salmon, that is an invasive salmon that comes from the farmed salmon, and they are actually threatening the North Atlantic salmon for extinction from the rivers and fjords. There we have a special AI solution that can identify the special two different salmons, and we can actually guide very humane the humpback salmon to an artificial lake, and where we can pick it up, because we can still eat it, of course. So this is just to take them out of the unnatural ecosystem they are in. And I can tell you, just to finalize, Elena and Julia, you need to bring some of the data centers people there to the Nordics. We can give them a treat and show them how data centers can actually be part of a symbiosis with the people there, but also with other industries. I'm so terrified about what's happening there, and it's so stupid. So this is an invitation. Take care of it. So
that's a good closing remark, Henrik. And I'm really pleased how hopefully you feel the same. Really pleased how our conversation went today. I think we are almost there. We're almost the end. As I mentioned, it's recorded, and we are more than happy to share this recording. So for those who could not really watch it and would like to really see it, as usual, please get in touch with all of us. Yeah, with Julie, Elena, Henrik, David, or myself, if you would like to have more information. Also, please be free to join our data center decarbonization LinkedIn group. It's growing day by day. So David and myself, we started in February with 2 members, and I think we're approaching 3,500 now at the moment, and it's growing day by day. Yeah, so you can see there is a real interest around how to decarbonize the industry. Again, many thanks to our knowledgeable and really great panel here or discussion
I
round.
need to go now because my
Yes.
taxi is going to
Okay.
the airport. So
Thank
thank
you.
you very much for having this
Thank you very
meeting.
much, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
And
Julie.
Bye.
Bye, Elena.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.